beyond the stoic portraits. The shocking truth about Abraham Lincoln involves a man tormented by inner demons, fighting untold battles long before the Civil War. His path to preserving a fractured nation wasn't paved with privilege or ease, but with profound loss and a relentless struggle. Against his own mind, his earliest years on the Kentucky frontier were a relentless grind. Born in 1809 into a one-room log cabin, Abraham knew only cold winters, dirt floors, and hands calloused from endless labor. His father, Thomas, a stern carpenter and farmer, carved a life from nothing. But it was his mother, Nancy, soft-spoken and deeply spiritual, who offered the scant tenderness in a world defined by scarcity. Their cabin, more a desperate shelter than a home, lacked windows and insulation, allowing frost to creep inside and rain to tap ceaselessly on the wooden roof. Lincoln would later say he was raised in the backwoods, and it was no romantic metaphor. It was a brutal struggle for bare survival. Libraries, teachers, and even basic books were luxuries unknown. Yet, curiosity burned fiercely within the young Abraham. By the age of 2, the family migrated to Indiana, chasing the elusive promise of better land. He learned early that life was labor, and labor was life. But within the vast, silent forests, a boy's imagination took root. He'd walk miles just to borrow a book, once famously ruining a cherished copy of Life of George Washington when rain seeped through the cabin walls. To repay the damage, he toiled for days, chopping wood and hauling water, not as punishment, but as the harsh, unquestioned currency of their world. Neighbors found him peculiar, tall, awkward, often wandering alone, scraps of paper clutched in his hand, scribbling quotes and poems by the dwindling firelight. He possessed a memory like a trap and a love for words utterly unusual for a farm boy. Yet something in Abraham Lincoln, even then, was reaching upward, not towards power, not yet, but toward a profound understanding of the world. In the quiet woods of Indiana, beneath a leaky roof, he began building something far grander than a log cabin. He was forging a mind, a vision, a voice that would one day echo across a fractured nation. Every great life begins with a wound, one so deep it never quite heals. For Abraham Lincoln, that wound ripped open at the tender age of 9. It was 1818, and the Lincolns were carving out a life in Indiana's thick woods. Their days long, filled with ceaseless work. But an invisible, deadly killer crept through the countryside. Milk sickness. No one understood it, only that people fell ill without warning, muscles weakening, stomachs turning, entire households wiped out in days. The grim cause, later discovered, was cows grazing on white snake root, a toxic plant, its poison passing into the milk, then into people. Nancy Hanks Lincoln, Abraham's mother, became one of its tragic victims. She weakened fast. Abraham and his sister Sarah watched, helpless, as their quiet, warm anchor faded before their eyes. There was no doctor, no medicine, just the dim, desperate hope that rest might save her. It didn't. Nancy passed away in the fall, wrapped in a blanket of leaves and silence, just 34 years old. Abraham, still a boy, helped his father carve her coffin. They buried her on a small rise near the cabin, beneath a handmade wooden cross. He never forgot that moment, that raw, primal grief. For weeks, maybe longer, Abraham spoke little. He wandered the woods alone, eyes lowered, shoulders heavier than any child should bear. Nancy had been his first teacher, the one who taught him to read, who encouraged his questions, who believed there was something special about her son. Her absence left a hollow place that even time, the great healer, couldn't quite fill. Yet grief couldn't stop life. Thomas Lincoln remarried the next year, bringing Sarah Bush Johnston into their meager home. She was kind, patient, and brought a miracle with her. Actual books. Abraham took to her quickly. She treated him like her own, and in many ways, she helped stitch the boy's broken heart back together. Still, something had irrevocably changed. From that point forward, Abraham Lincoln carried sorrow like a shadow, quiet, always close. It made him thoughtful, deeply introspective. And later, as a man burdened by the weight of a nation, it would give him an empathy, a profound kindness, that a president would desperately need to carry a wounded country on his back. As the seasons turned, the boy from the log cabin began to grow, not just in wisdom, but in an almost alarming height. By his teenage years, Abraham Lincoln stood out in every crowd, literally. He grew tall, lanky, and long-limbed, eventually reaching 6'4" in adulthood, a foot taller than most men of his era. His trousers were perpetually too short, his sleeves mismatched, his walk ungainly. He was described as grotesque, curious, and awkward by some. But Abraham didn't care for appearances. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was trying to understand the world, a relentless quest for knowledge that consumed him. He read constantly, often lying on his stomach by the fireplace, feet kicking in the air, devouring every book he could borrow or barter for. Shakespeare, Aesop's fables, the Bible, law texts, political speeches. He didn't just read them, he studied, memorized, and reflected. Often, he'd pause mid-shore to recite a quote or tell a story he'd rehearsed 100 times in his head. Neighbors found him odd, almost alien. One farmer remarked that boy's always talking like he's already a senator or something. Another called him moony, always staring off, lost in thought. But Lincoln wasn't lazy. He worked relentlessly, splitting logs, planting corn, digging wells. He was known for his immense strength, capable of swinging an axe all day without tiring. Yet, even during physical labor, his mind was somewhere else entirely. He'd carve verses into fence posts, jot legal arguments on scraps of bark. His hands were rough, but his thoughts were sharp, constantly honing his intellect by his early 20s. Abraham had cycled through several trades. He was a store clerk, a postmaster, a rail splitter, and a flatboat crewman, ferrying goods down the mighty Mississippi River. These journeys were eye-opening, especially exposing him firsthand to the shocking horrors of slavery in the South, a sight that etched a deep disgust into his soul. Still poor, still mostly self-educated, Lincoln eventually settled in the small town of New Salem, Illinois. It was here that people began to truly notice him, not for his looks, but for his mind. He could spin a yarn that had the whole room roaring with laughter, then turn around and win a debate with breathtaking clarity and calm. He wasn't polished, he wasn't outwardly powerful, but there was something magnetic about him, something undeniably honest and authentic. Slowly, quietly, Abraham Lincoln was stepping into the light, not yet as a hero, but as a man beginning to find his formidable voice in a world that desperately needed it. Asterisk. When Abraham Lincoln finally began his law career in Springfield, Illinois, he was no longer the silent, awkward woodsman. He was a rising figure, still thin, still a bit rough around the edges, but now renowned for his sharp mind, quiet humor, and unparalleled storytelling. It was in this vibrant, albeit provincial, legal and political hub that he met Mary Todd. Mary was unlike any woman he had ever encountered. Born into a wealthy, politically connected Kentucky family, she was educated, fiercely ambitious, and politically astute, traits not always welcomed in women of the 1800s. Yet, she refused to shrink herself, and she was utterly unintimidated by Lincoln's strange appearance or his humble origins. In fact, she openly admired his intellect and his nascent vision. "He's going to be President of the United States someday," she famously declared, and she meant it with every fiber of her being. Their courtship was passionate, but notoriously rocky. Lincoln, deeply insecure socially, emotionally, and even financially, once abruptly broke off their engagement without clear reason, spiraling into a period of profound depression so severe that friends genuinely feared for his life. He called it the hypo, short for hypochondria, but it was unmistakably what we now recognize as severe clinical depression. He felt unworthy of her, perhaps unworthy of happiness altogether. Yet, somehow, the undeniable bond between them endured. They finally married on a rainy November day in 1842. Abraham was 33, Mary 23. Their marriage was far from perfect. They fought often. Their clashes intensified during times of immense grief and relentless political stress. Mary could be impulsive, sensitive, and prone to dramatic outbursts. Abraham, conversely, was withdrawn, emotionally guarded, and often lost in his own melancholic thoughts. Yet, beneath the turmoil, there was genuine affection and, more importantly, an unwavering loyalty. They would have 4 sons: Robert, Edward, Willie, and Tad. Tragically, only Robert would live past his teenage years. The devastating loss of their children, especially the sudden death of young Willie in the White House, would crush Mary and deepen Abraham's already profound melancholy. But in their own complicated, often painful way, they carried each other through it. Mary believed in Abraham long before anyone else did. She relentlessly encouraged his political ambitions, steadfastly supported his difficult decisions, and bravely endured countless public attacks for standing by his side. Their love wasn't neat or plucked from a storybook. It was raw, complicated, and sometimes agonizing, but it was undeniably real. And in a life filled with crushing loneliness, brutal criticism, and unimaginable pressure, Abraham Lincoln never doubted that one woman, however troubled, truly believed in him, right to the very end. In November of 1860, Abraham Lincoln was elected the 16th President of the United States. But there was no celebration, no jubilant applause echoing in the South. His name hadn't even appeared on ballots in 10 southern states. To many there, his election wasn't merely a political shift. It was a direct, existential threat to their entire way of life, built upon the institution of slavery. Within weeks, South Carolina, a hotbed of secessionist fervor, bolted from the Union. One by one, 6 more states swiftly followed suit. They formed the Confederate States of America, establishing their own president, their own government, and a defiant promise to defend slavery at all costs. Lincoln hadn't even taken office yet. When he finally arrived in Washington, D.C. in March 1861, under heavy disguise due to credible assassination threats, the country was already teetering on the very brink of collapse. He wasn't stepping into a presidency, he was stepping directly into a firestorm. And then, the spark, Fort Sumter. On April 12, 1861, Confederate forces opened fire on a U.S. military fort in South Carolina. The Civil War, a conflict that would claim more American lives than all other wars combined, had brutally begun. Lincoln's goal was crystal clear, at least to him: preserve the Union, keep the country whole. But not everyone agreed on how to achieve this impossible feat. He faced relentless pressure from all sides. Radical abolitionists who demanded immediate emancipation, moderates who feared rapid change, border states teetering on the edge of defection, and a deeply divided Congress unsure whether Lincoln was even up to the colossal task. Truthfully, no one knew if he was. He had never led an army. He had no formal military training. His early generals were a parade of indecision, arrogance, or outright incompetence. Early battles were disastrous, leading to thousands of deaths, national humiliation, and widespread public doubt. People began to openly ask if Lincoln was in over his head, a question that haunted his every waking moment. Yet, through it all, he never lost focus. He read reports late into the night, held endless, agonizing meetings, studied maps until his eyes blurred from exhaustion. He visited wounded soldiers in field hospitals, shook hands with grieving widows, and walked among the common people whenever he could, seeking solace and understanding. The White House itself became a kind of war room, and sometimes a lonely prison. Lincoln barely slept. His shoulders slumped further and further, his face hollowed, aging dramatically before the nation's horrified eyes. Yet, through this crushing weight, he remained remarkably steady, not because he was sure he would win, but because he believed, with every fiber of his being, that the Union was worth saving, no matter the cost. The country was burning, consumed by its own divisions, and Abraham Lincoln, quietly and deliberately, walked straight into the flames, knowing he might never emerge. Asterisk, as the Civil War dragged into its second horrific year, Abraham Lincoln faced a moral choice, one that would define not only his presidency, but the very soul of the nation. The Union had suffered terrible, almost unbearable losses. The public was growing weary, their resolve fraying, and whispers grew louder, more insistent. What are we truly fighting for? For Lincoln, the war had begun as a desperate fight to preserve the Union, nothing more. But as the months dragged on, and the blood spilled across fields and rivers, that initial purpose no longer seemed enough, no longer justified the agonizing sacrifice. Slavery, the monstrous, festering moral wound at the very center of America, could no longer be avoided, could no longer be swept aside. Lincoln detested it, always had. He once called it a monstrous injustice. But he also knew, with chilling clarity, that directly attacking slavery was an incredibly dangerous, almost suicidal political move. It risked alienating the crucial border states that, despite being slave states, remained loyal to the Union. It could irrevocably divide the North, sparking new conflicts within his own ranks. Politically, it could utterly destroy him. Still, he waited, he watched, he prayed, and after the bloody, yet crucial, Union victory at Antietam in September 1862, a victory that gave him the moral leverage he needed, he made his earth-shattering decision. He would act. On January 1st, 1863, President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. It declared that all enslaved people in Confederate-held territories were now and forever free. Legally, its immediate reach was limited. It didn't free slaves in the loyal border states, nor could it physically reach areas that Union didn't yet control. But, symbolically, it was massive, a seismic shift in the war's very meaning. With a single, decisive stroke of the pen, Lincoln reshaped the entire conflict. It was no longer just a brutal battle for national unity. It became, unequivocally, a battle for human freedom, a moral crusade. Critics attacked him mercilessly. Some decried it as unconstitutional, a dictatorial overreach. Others, more radical, argued it was too little, too late. But Lincoln was unmoved, his resolve ironclad. He believed it was not only morally right, but strategically necessary to win the war and redefine the nation. And something else profound happened. Thousands of formerly enslaved men, now free in name, joined the Union Army. They fought not just for country, but for their own liberation, their own future. Black regiments, like the legendary 54th Massachusetts, became enduring symbols of unparalleled courage and sacrifice. The Emancipation Proclamation did not instantly end slavery. That would require more time, more pain, and a constitutional amendment. But it illuminated the path forward, a beacon in the darkness. Lincoln had taken a monumental gamble, a profound moral stand in the middle of chaos. And though the cost would be horrifyingly high, the meaning of the war and of America itself had changed forever. By 1863, the Civil War had devolved into a grinding, endless tragedy. Towns were transformed into graveyards. Fields became vast oceans of mud and bone. And the man at the very center of it all, President Abraham Lincoln, was bearing a weight no human was meant to carry. He was, in many chilling ways, the loneliest man in America. Photographs from the time show a man utterly transformed. His once youthful face was now deeply lined, gaunt, perpetually solemn. His eyes carried the crushing heaviness of 1,000 telegrams announcing the dead. Sleepless nights, relentless political warfare, and unfathomable personal grief had carved deep, permanent shadows into his features. And grief, a constant companion, followed him everywhere. In 1862, the Lincolns' beloved 11-year-old son, Willie, died suddenly of illness while living in the White House. The boy had been Lincoln's joy, intelligent, curious, full of laughter. His death devastated the family, tearing Mary apart. She wore black for years, dabbled in spiritualism, and slipped further into emotional turmoil. For Abraham, it was one more raw wound in a life already marked by unbearable loss, a personal tragedy layered onto a national nightmare. Yet, he kept going. He read casualty lists each morning, a ritual of agony. He paced the halls of the executive mansion deep into the night, wrestling with impossible decisions. Sometimes, he visited hospitals to speak with wounded soldiers, quietly moving from bed to bed, holding hands, offering comfort, often with tears streaming down his own face. He wrote letters to grieving parents, each word meticulously measured, deeply personal, and profoundly human. In November 1863, he traveled to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, the site of one of the war's bloodiest, most pivotal battles. There, standing on hallowed ground amidst fresh graves, in just 272 immortal words, he delivered what would become one of the most famous, most impactful speeches in American history. The Gettysburg Address wasn't long, it wasn't loud, but it was devastatingly powerful. He spoke of a new birth of freedom and a government of the people, by the people, for the people. He reminded a weary, bleeding nation what it was truly fighting for, what it must become. But privately, Lincoln struggled immensely. He questioned whether he was doing enough, whether the war would ever truly end, whether the country, so bitterly torn apart, could ever truly come together again. Still, he carried on, not with fiery speeches, but with a quiet, unwavering resolve. Because deep down, Abraham Lincoln understood something others didn't. That leadership, true leadership, wasn't about appearing strong or infallible. It was about remaining steady, unwavering, even when everything around you was crumbling, falling apart. On April 14th, 1865, the sun rose over Washington, D.C., warmer and quieter than it had been in years. The war, the brutal, endless war, was finally ending. Just 5 days earlier, General Robert E. Lee had surrendered at Appomattox Courthouse. After 4 long, bloody years, peace was, at last, within reach. Abraham Lincoln felt it deeply. For the first time in months, perhaps even years, he smiled, more freely, walked with a slightly lighter step. He told his cabinet that morning he felt a great weight had been lifted. That afternoon, he took a carriage ride with Mary. They spoke of the future, of travel, of returning to a semblance of normal life. For a fleeting moment, they were simply husband and wife again. Not burdened symbols, not worn survivors. That evening, they decided to attend a play at Ford's Theatre. The production was Our American Cousin, a light-hearted comedy. Lincoln arrived late, settling into the presidential box overlooking the stage, a silk American flag draped gently in front of him. Then, at precisely 10:15 p.m., while the audience erupted in laughter at a well-timed joke, a man slipped through the door behind him, John Wilkes Booth, a well-known actor and passionate Confederate sympathizer. Booth saw Lincoln not as a leader, but as a tyrant, believing that by killing him, he could revive the dying Southern cause. With a small Derringer pistol, Booth fired a single shot into the back of Lincoln's head. Chaos erupted, shrieks replacing laughter. Booth leaped to the stage, shouting, "Sic semper tyrannis," thus always to tyrants, before escaping into the night. Lincoln was carried, unconscious and bleeding, across the street to a nearby boarding house. He was laid in a small bed, far too short for his towering frame. Doctors could do nothing. The wound was mortal. He never regained consciousness. At 7:22 the next morning, Abraham Lincoln took his last breath. Secretary of War Edwin Stanton, standing solemnly at the foot of the bed, whispered, "Now he belongs to the ages." The man who had held a fractured nation together through unparalleled war, devastating loss, and profound doubt, was gone. And the White House door, which had always opened to him, would never open again. After Abraham Lincoln's death, the country entered a strange, almost eerie kind of silence, as if the war itself had taken its final, shuddering breath with him. His body was placed in a simple wooden coffin and carried through the hushed streets of Washington. Thousands lined the roads in mourning, some standing in stoic silence, others openly weeping. Entire families traveled for miles just to glimpse the passing of the funeral train that would carry him slowly, mournfully home to Springfield, Illinois. The procession stretched across cities and states, a national outpouring of grief unlike anything seen before or since. It was not just a farewell, it was a reckoning, a collective acknowledgement of the immense sacrifice and the impossible burden he had borne. Lincoln had become more than a man. He was now a symbol, a memory, a question whispered across generations. What does it truly take to hold a broken country together? He never lived to see the 13th Amendment officially adopted, the law that finally abolished slavery in every corner of the United States. But it passed because of him, because of the Emancipation Proclamation, because of the brutal war he chose to finish, no matter the cost. He also never saw Reconstruction, the fragile and agonizing attempt to rebuild the South and redefine American freedom. Some historians passionately argue that if he had lived, it might have gone differently, less harsh, more just, perhaps even avoiding the bitterness that festered for decades. We'll never know, but his words endured, echoing from Gettysburg, resounding in his second inaugural address, and found in countless private letters and public speeches. Lincoln left behind not just policies, but profound principles, humility, compassion, and almost unshakable belief in the possibility of a more perfect union. He was not flawless. He was cautious, sometimes agonizingly slow to act, often deeply depressed, and frequently overwhelmed. But he never lost sight of the bigger picture, the grand, unifying vision, and that's why his shadow still lingers. In classrooms and courtrooms, on coins and monuments, in the very fabric of American identity. In times of division, people still turn to Lincoln, not because he had all the answers, but because he never stopped asking the right questions. Asterisk, what does freedom truly mean? What does unity cost? What must we endure to live up to our ideals? Abraham Lincoln once said, "The better angels of our nature must guide us forward." And maybe that's what he became in the end, not just a leader of his time, but a quiet, enduring angel of ours, guiding us still. Forget the polished legends of powdered wigs and polite declarations. The American Revolution was a messy, brutal, and often desperate fight, fueled not just by tea and taxes, but by simmering resentment and radical ideas that shattered an empire. It wasn't just a war. It was an explosion of societal tension, a desperate gamble for a new world. Long before the American Revolution became a declared war, it was a feeling. Quiet at first, then impossible to ignore. In the mid-1700s, the 13 British colonies in North America were thriving, from the rocky coasts of New England to the vast tobacco fields of Virginia. People lived, worked, and traded under the British Crown, even priding themselves as British citizens. But an underlying tension simmered beneath the surface. They were also something else, something distinct. They were tougher, more independent, accustomed to making their own way with little oversight. This burgeoning independence, however, was about to feel profoundly threatened. After Britain's costly victory in the 7 Years' War, the empire was financially drained. So, naturally, it turned its greedy eyes to the colonies, imposing a flurry of new taxes and trade restrictions. The colonists were suddenly asked to foot the bill for a war they hadn't started and for a royal army many of them didn't want, seeing it more as an occupying force than a protective presence. But it wasn't just the money that chafed. It was the principle, no taxation without representation, wasn't merely a catchy slogan. It was a furious declaration of dignity, a demand for basic rights. The Stamp Act of 1765 taxed everything from newspapers and legal documents to even playing cards, affecting every aspect of colonial life. The Townshend Acts followed, taxing everyday goods like glass and tea. And then came the Tea Act, which, while actually making tea cheaper, was seen as an insulting trick, leading directly to a legendary protest, the Boston Tea Party. On a cold December night in 1773, a radical group known as the Sons of Liberty, disguised as Mohawk warriors, boarded British ships in Boston Harbor and dumped 342 chests of tea into the water. It was dramatic, defiant, and the absolute last straw for the British government. The response was swift and brutal. The coercive acts, or, as the colonists indignantly called them, the Intolerable Acts. These laws punished Massachusetts harshly, closing its vital port and putting the colony under direct military rule. Suddenly, this wasn't just about taxes. It was about absolute control, about whether distant rulers could govern people who had built an entirely new life of their own, thousands of miles away. Across the colonies, town meetings erupted into resistance councils. Merchants boycotted British goods, causing economic pain back in Britain. Farmers, once loyal subjects, joined militias, drilling openly. Men and women who once considered themselves proud British subjects now began to whisper a dangerous question. What if we didn't need a king at all? The colonies were no longer just restless. They were awakening, a powder keg waiting for a spark. The fire of revolution hadn't fully ignited yet, but the smoke was rising, thick and undeniable, and it would not be ignored before bullets flew and flags were defiantly raised. The American Revolution was fought with words. Long before independence became a political demand, it was an idea, a dangerous thought, and ideas, once spoken aloud, are notoriously hard to contain. In taverns thick with pipe smoke, in bustling coffee houses, at dinner tables, and from church pulpits, ordinary colonists began asking extraordinary, treasonous questions. Could a king truly rule people who had never seen his face, who had built their lives on an untamed continent? Should a government thousands of miles away dictate the lives of farmers in Virginia or blacksmiths in Boston? And then came the writers, the incendiary thinkers who gave furious voice to this rising doubt. Samuel Adams, a master agitator, stirred Boston's streets with fiery newspaper articles and secret meetings, fueling the flames of discontent. John Dickinson of Pennsylvania, a more measured but no less firm voice, eloquently argued for colonial rights in his influential asterisk letters, From a Farmer in Pennsylvania asterisk. And Benjamin Franklin, equal parts shrewd scientist and biting satirist, quietly spread revolutionary seeds across Europe and the colonies through countless pamphlets and essays. But perhaps the most explosive voice of all came from an Englishman, an unlikely revolutionary named Thomas Paine. In January 1776, Paine published Common Sense, a blistering 47-page pamphlet that utterly ripped apart the very idea of monarchy and hereditary rule. His words were plain, direct, and fiercely unapologetic. He wrote not for scholars, but for everyone, shopkeepers, sailors, farmers. All could understand and feel the white-hot weight of his arguments. He openly called King George III a tyrant. He called the colonies a nascent nation. He urged immediate independence, not in years, but now. It is time to part, he wrote, a rallying cry that resonated across the continent, and people listened. In just a few months, Common Sense sold over 100,000 copies, an absolutely staggering number for the time, equivalent to millions today. His words were a match, lighting a fuse that would help ignite a revolution. But it wasn't just pamphlets. Passionate speeches rang out in every state assembly. Urgent letters crossed the colonies, binding disparate communities together. The written word became a potent weapon, passed from hand to hand, heart to heart. And through these words, the colonies began to see themselves differently, not as scattered, subjugated provinces, but as a single, unified people with a shared, desperate purpose. The British had muskets, the colonists had messages, and sometimes words cut deeper than steel. The American Revolution would still demand soldiers and unimaginable sacrifice, but first, it needed voices brave enough to articulate what others only dared to think. It began under the shroud of darkness. On the night of April 18, 1775, British troops quietly marched out of Boston. Their mission was brutally clear: arrest colonial leaders Samuel Adams and John Hancock in Lexington, then seize the vast stockpiles of weapons hidden in nearby Concord. They hoped to move swiftly, silently, and completely unnoticed, catching the rebels off guard. But the countryside, already on edge, was watching. Thanks to a sophisticated network of spies and informants, patriots had learned of the British plan hours earlier. They knew time was terrifyingly short. Riders were needed, fast, fearless men who could alert the scattered militias before the hated redcoats arrived. The most famous of them, Paul Revere, didn't ride alone. That night, Revere was joined by William Dawes and, later, Samuel Prescott. Each took separate pre-planned routes through Massachusetts, galloping through sleepy villages and isolated farms, pounding on doors, shouting the urgent alarm: "The regulars are coming out, not the British are coming," as legend claims, because everyone in the colonies still technically considered themselves British, but they knew precisely what it meant. Lanterns were hung in Boston's Old North Church, one, if by land, two, if by sea. Two lights flickered frantically in the steeple, signaling that British troops were crossing the Charles River by boat. The message spread like wildfire, relayed by other riders, reaching towns and hamlets in minutes. By morning, colonial Minutemen had gathered on Lexington Green, farmers with hunting rifles, blacksmiths with crude muskets, merchants with powder horns. They were cold, nervous, completely untrained, but resolute. And then, just after sunrise, the disciplined British soldiers arrived, bayonets fixed, eyes narrowed. The two sides faced each other across the village green, a tense standoff. No one knows for certain who fired the very first shot. But in that moment, a single, definitive crack in the still morning air, history shifted irrevocably. 8 colonists were killed, 10 wounded. The British, unnerved but determined, pushed onto Concord, only to find most of the weapons had been cleverly moved or hidden. As they began their frustrated return march to Boston, skirmishes erupted all along the path. Militiamen hiding behind trees, stone walls, and houses. Fired relentlessly at the exposed British columns from every angle. It was no longer a protest, it was war. The shot heard round the world, as it would later be called, marked the beginning of open rebellion, a bloody divorce. And it all started with ordinary riders in the night, men who lit the fuse not with fire, but with urgency, raw courage, and a willingness to risk everything for a cause just beginning to take terrifying shape. In the early, chaotic days of the Revolution, leadership was as uncertain as the morning mist clinging to the New England hills. Amid the disarray of untested militias and local skirmishers, one man emerged, almost inevitably, as the natural choice to lead the rebellion: George Washington. Washington was not an obvious leader in the conventional, charismatic sense. He was tall, reserved, even somewhat aloof, possessing a quiet dignity that nonetheless set him apart. Before the war, he had already earned respect as a skilled surveyor, a brave, though often defeated soldier in the French and Indian War, and a prominent gentleman of Virginia's elite planter class. Yet, despite his distinguished background, he was far from immune to doubts and personal failures. Like many colonists, he had experienced setbacks and frustrations, but those experiences, rather than breaking him, only honed his steely resolve. When the Second Continental Congress finally assembled, The monumental task of uniting the disparate, suspicious colonies under a single banner seemed insurmountable. Divisions ran deep, and the very idea of a standing army was fraught with suspicion. Among fiercely independent colonialists, in this fragile, volatile atmosphere, Washington was chosen as the commander-in-chief of the Continental Army. His appointment was less about grand promises or fiery rhetoric, and more about the quiet strength he projected, a reliability, a steadfastness, that inspired trust and confidence among his often quarreling peers. From the very beginning, Washington understood the daunting enormity of the task. He knew that a conventional military strategy, akin to the rigid European warfare of the time, was simply impossible for an army of farmers and tradesmen armed with mismatched muskets and scant, constantly dwindling supplies. Instead, he pragmatically embraced a strategy of resilience and persistence, turning every setback, every crushing defeat, into a hard-earned lesson. In battles that often ended in humiliating retreats or inconclusive skirmishes, his calm, unshakable demeanor provided a crucial, steadying force for his demoralized men. His leadership was not marked by grand speeches or theatrical gestures. Rather, it was his sheer presence on the field, his unwavering willingness to ride alongside his ragged troops, to share in their gnawing hardships and brutal privations, that made him revered. Washington would often ride out to inspect the desolate encampments, listening patiently to his soldiers' desperate concerns, offering words of encouragement, sometimes even sharing his meager rations. He understood, instinctively, that unity was not built on declarations, but on shared struggle and mutual trust, a bond forged in the fires of adversity. As the war dragged on, seemingly without end, Washington's reputation grew not from victories, but from his relentless refusal to quit. Each challenge, whether it was the brutal, starving winter at Valley Forge, or the audacious tactical maneuvering during surprise attacks, cemented his role as the unwavering heart of the revolution. His quiet courage and unyielding determination inspired an entire fledgling nation, proving that true leadership is forged in the fires of adversity, not just in moments of triumph. George Washington was more than a military commander. He was the living embodiment of a desperate nation's hopes, a beacon of steadfast resolve in a time when freedom was the only price worth paying. In the midst of revolution and harrowing uncertainty, the colonists instinctively turned to the power of the pen. The very birth of a nation was not defined solely by musket fire and bloody battlefields, but by radical ideas committed to paper, ideas that would shape a collective destiny for generations to come. This was a time when every written word carried immense weight. Each stroke of the quill was a testament to defiant hope and unwavering resolve. In the bustling meeting houses, crowded coffee houses, and private studies across the colonies, influential thinkers meticulously drafted a bold vision for a new, unprecedented society. The Declaration of Independence emerged as the ultimate unifying document, a profound declaration not just of separation from Great Britain, but of an entirely new idea, that every person was endowed with inalienable rights bestowed by a creator, not a king. Thomas Jefferson, with his careful yet impassioned words, captured a truly radical thought, that governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed. This revolutionary concept resonated deeply among the colonists, who had long felt the bitter sting of taxation without representation, of being ruled without a voice. Before this formal, thunderous proclamation, however, a quieter, equally potent revolution was already underway. Samuel Adams, John Dickinson, and other early agitators relentlessly circulated pamphlets that boldly challenged the fundamental status quo. Their words, sharp and stirring, ignited heated anger and furious debates in taverns and town halls across the land. Their writings questioned the very legitimacy of a distant monarchy ruling over lands it barely understood, and crucially, they planted the potent seeds of self-determination deep within the hearts of ordinary citizens, transforming subjects into nascent revolutionaries. Across the vast disconnected colonies, newspapers played an absolutely pivotal role. They tirelessly published essays, letters, and urgent reports that vividly revealed the everyday struggles against perceived tyranny. The press became the very lifeblood of revolutionary thought, bridging the immense distances between the colonies and uniting diverse, sometimes quarreling, voices into a single, resonant call for freedom. The wide circulation of these printed materials ensured that even those in remote farms or isolated coastal towns felt deeply connected to the unfolding drama of revolution, that they were part of something monumental. In the fervent crucible of revolutionary spirit, the written word transformed into a powerful tool for empowerment, for awakening. It was through these carefully crafted letters, manifestos, and declarations that the colonies began to see themselves not as fractured entities, but as one people, a nascent nation bound by a common, desperate purpose and a shared, audacious dream. The idea of independence was, in many profound ways, inked into the hearts and minds of the colonists long before the major battles were ever fought. Thus, a nation was born in ink, a nation that would continue to evolve, challenge, and inspire generations to come, proving the pen could be mightier than the sword. In the bitter winter of 1777, as the American Revolution waged on, a moment of deep, soul-crushing trial came to define the unwavering resolve of a fledgling nation. At Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, George Washington's Continental Army found itself encamped in the biting cold, far from the fleeting comforts of home and the elusive certainty of victory. This was no battlefield marked by cannon fire and clashing swords. It was a brutal crucible where mere survival itself was at stake. The soldiers at Valley Forge faced more than the enemy's muskets. They battled a harsh, relentless winter that brought with it constant snow, freezing temperatures, and winds that cut to the bone. Men huddled in makeshift, flimsy shelters, their bodies trembling uncontrollably as they shared sparse, often spoiled rations and worn, inadequate blankets. Disease, primarily typhus and smallpox, and gnawing hunger crept in like silent, invisible invaders, claiming lives not on the field of battle, but within the very camp that was meant to be their refuge. Thousands perished, their frozen bodies buried in unmarked graves, a silent testament to the suffering. Yet, amid the despair, a quiet, almost miraculous determination began to grow. Washington, ever the steadfast, unyielding leader, visited the encampment regularly, exposing himself to the same harsh conditions. He moved among his men, not with grand speeches, but with a palpable presence that conveyed unwavering solidarity, a shared suffering. He understood, with chilling clarity, that to rebuild an army from the ashes of defeat and despair, morale had to be kindled like a flickering flame in the deepest dark. In those grim, frozen months, the soldiers' spirits were slowly forged anew. The arrival of Baron Friedrich von Steuben, a disciplined, if somewhat eccentric, Prussian officer, marked a critical turning point. With patient instruction and rigorously brutal drills, von Steuben transformed the ragged, disease-ridden militia into a disciplined, formidable force, finally capable of standing up to the professional British regulars. His training programs instilled discipline, order, and a newfound confidence, converting utter chaos into a semblance of military precision. The hardships at Valley Forge were as much a test of character as they were of physical endurance. Every single day was a struggle against the elements, against starvation, against hopelessness, and every night was a silent, desperate promise that the fight for independence, no matter how brutal, would continue. The soldiers learned not only to survive the winter, but to bond together in shared hardship, their collective spirit warming the coldest of nights, their camaraderie becoming an unbreakable shield. In that crucible of suffering, a resilient army was reborn, tempered by fire and ice. The harsh lessons learned at Valley Forge, lessons of unity, perseverance, and unwavering commitment, would carry the Continental Army forward, ultimately proving pivotal in the critical battles to come. It was a silent triumph of the human spirit over unimaginable adversity. As the conflict on American soil raged on, the struggle for independence was not fought solely with muskets and marching soldiers. It was also, crucially, waged in the intricate halls of diplomacy, a global game of alliances and whispers. Recognizing that the British empires might stretch far beyond the colonies, the revolutionaries knew, with chilling certainty, that they desperately needed help from beyond the Atlantic. Thus began a complex, high-stakes, global game of alliances, where former enemies of the crown became unexpected, even reluctant, allies. Benjamin Franklin, with his disarming wit, shrewd wisdom, and cultivated rustic charm, emerged as a master diplomat. Sent to France, he carried not only the carefully worded pleas of a fledgling nation, but also the immense hopes of a people yearning for freedom, a people who saw him as their last best chance. In the opulent salons of Paris, Franklin's unique blend of intellect and folksy charm captivated the French court. He meticulously painted a compelling picture of a nation cruelly oppressed by tyranny, a people united in their quest for liberty, a struggle that mirrored France's own simmering resentments against Britain. His appeal resonated deeply with the French, who, still smarting from their own humiliating losses in the 7 Years' War just a decade prior, found a powerful kindred spirit in the American struggle. In 1778, the French government, moved by both ideological kinship with the Enlightenment ideals and a potent strategic interest in weakening their ancient rival, officially allied with the American cause. French support brought not only desperately needed financial aid and vital supplies, but also professional soldiers and, crucially, naval power. French warships soon patrolled the Atlantic, effectively complicating British resupply plans and dramatically tipping the scales of battle. The alliance was a true turning point, a powerful signal that the revolution had transcended mere local grievances to become a matter of profound global importance. But the American Revolution was more than just a Franco-American affair. Other shrewd European powers saw opportunity amid Britain's vast, overextended empire. Spain and the Dutch Republic, too, lent quiet, sometimes covert, support. Although they were not formal allies in the same explicit way as France, their assistance, whether through secret arms shipments, loans, or by opening new fronts against the British, forcing them to divert resources, added to the mounting, relentless pressure on the crown. These international allies transformed a regional uprising into a worldwide contest, a proxy war fought on a grand scale. The American colonists were no longer isolated rebels, easily crushed, but participants in a larger, global struggle against imperial dominance. With crucial support flowing from across the ocean, the revolution began to take on a new, more formidable dimension. It became a fight for freedom that echoed the burgeoning Enlightenment ideals, spreading like wildfire across Europe. Through tireless diplomacy and relentless perseverance, the revolutionaries transformed their isolated struggle into a true global movement. And as ships loaded with French cannon and Spanish supplies set sail for America, the message was starkly clear. The fight for liberty was not confined to a single land, but was a universal cry against tyranny, a cry that would be heard around the world. Asterisk, by 1781, the tides of revolution were turning decisively, brutally, against the British. In a bold and meticulously orchestrated maneuver, General George Washington, alongside formidable French forces under General Rochambeau, and a powerful French naval fleet commanded by Admiral de Grasse, set a brilliant trap at Yorktown, Virginia. This coastal town, chosen by the British, was believed to be a safe haven, a perfect resupply point. But Washington had other, far more devastating plans. The British, under the command of General Charles Cornwallis, had fortified Yorktown, confident that its natural defenses and unimpeded access to the Chesapeake Bay would allow them to regroup, receive reinforcements, and resupply their beleaguered forces. However, through a series of secret, precise communications and careful coordination with their French allies, American and French forces converged on Yorktown from both land and sea. This dual approach meant that Cornwallis found himself suddenly and irrevocably encircled on all sides, his escape routes cut off. As the combined forces laid siege, the mood in Yorktown shifted rapidly from defiant confidence to gnawing desperation. For weeks, colonial and French soldiers tirelessly dug trenches, meticulously placed artillery, and tightened the noose around the British position. Every day, they relentlessly bombarded the entrenched enemy with cannon fire, the thunderous artillery duels echoing ominously over the quiet countryside, a steady, terrifying reminder that the end was tragically near. Asterisk, inside the besieged town, Cornwallis grew increasingly isolated and desperate. His vital supply lines were completely cut off by the unyielding vigilance of the French Navy, which patrolled the bay with absolute dominance. Reinforcements, once a distant hope, became an impossible dream as the British government's focus had shifted to other, more pressing theaters of war. The reality for Cornwallis was stark, undeniable. His position at Yorktown was utterly untenable. In a final, fateful move, after weeks of relentless bombardment, dwindling supplies, and mounting casualties, Cornwallis recognized that continued resistance was futile, a suicidal act. On October 19, 1781, he formally surrendered to General Washington. The surrender was not just a military capitulation, it was the profound, symbolic end of British rule in America, a moment that echoed through history. The fields of Yorktown, once scarred by the tension of siege warfare, became hallowed ground, a testament to the unforeseen power of unity and the sheer force of American determination. The victory at Yorktown reverberated far beyond the immediate battlefield. It compelled the British government, battered and weary, to finally negotiate an end to the brutal conflict, leading to the signing of the Treaty of Paris in 1783, which officially recognized American independence. In that electrifying moment, the once fragile dream of a new nation shifted from a rebellious hope to a tangible, undeniable reality. A nation born not only of fierce battles and courageous sacrifices, but of brilliant strategy, unwavering belief, and the audacious pursuit of freedom against impossible odds. After the cannon fire faded and the banners of surrender were lowered, the American Revolution's true, complex legacy began to emerge, not merely in the formation of a nation, but in the enduring, transformative idea of freedom itself. The Revolution had achieved more than just military victories. It had sparked a profound, global transformation in how people viewed government, inherent rights, and the very spirit of humanity. In the immediate wake of war, the fragile newborn nation faced the daunting, almost overwhelming task of nation building. The newly freed colonies, often distrustful of each other and deeply fractured by regional interests, grappled with establishing a system of governance that could truly reflect the radical ideals for which they had fought. The Articles of Confederation, their first clumsy attempt at unity, quickly revealed their severe limitations, proving too weak to bind the states together effectively. It became starkly clear that a stronger, more cohesive framework was desperately needed, one that could balance the necessary power between state and federal authorities, while fiercely protecting individual liberties. This desperate need led to the Constitutional Convention of 1787, a gathering of brilliant, often warring, minds from across the states, who came together to forge a revolutionary new blueprint for governance. The debates were intense, protracted, and at times bitterly acrimonious. Compromises were painstakingly made on everything from representation in Congress to the delicate balance of power between branches of government. Yet, the underlying principle remained steadfast, an unyielding bedrock. Government must serve the people, and all legitimate power must derive from the consent of the governed. As the United States began to truly take shape, the revolutionary ideas of equality and natural rights continued to inspire, albeit imperfectly. The Declaration of Independence, penned by Thomas Jefferson, had boldly declared that all men are created equal, although that promise was chillingly not fully realized at the time, most notably for enslaved people and women. It planted a revolutionary seed that would slowly grow and evolve through centuries of struggle for civil rights, social justice, and broader inclusion. The audacious, revolutionary ideals resonated far beyond American shores. They became a powerful beacon, inspiring other nations and oppressed peoples to challenge their own tyrannical oppressors, and to envision a society where freedom, equality, and democracy were not just abstract concepts, but the very foundation of life. In this way, the American Revolution became a powerful symbol, a rallying cry for oppressed peoples everywhere, a testament to the belief that the common person could overthrow a powerful empire. The core idea that endured was not merely the conquest of land or the overthrow of a specific government, but the profound belief that every individual possesses inherent undeniable rights that no ruler, no state, can arbitrarily deny. It was a powerful, transformative notion that continues to influence heated debates about liberty and justice around the globe today. Thus, long after the battles had ended and the Treaty of Paris was signed, the spirit of revolution lived on. It endures. In the ongoing, often difficult, quest for a more perfect union, a constant striving towards its ideals. It serves as a potent reminder that the true revolution was not solely fought on the battlefield, but in the hearts and minds of those who dared, against all odds, to dream of freedom. Asterisk high in the Peruvian Andes, shrouded in mist and mystery, lies a city that seems to float between earth and sky, Machu Picchu, often called the Lost City. It beckons the curious with its silent stone walls, astonishing terraced hillsides, and panoramic vistas that defy the passage of time. Yet, beneath its breathtaking beauty lies an enigma, a sudden abandonment that still puzzles historians. Even before modern explorers set foot on its ancient, overgrown paths, local indigenous legends whispered of a sacred, hidden place, a secret retreat concealed from the eyes of European conquerors. The site itself appears as if it was sculpted by nature's own hand, a marvel of human engineering blended seamlessly with breathtaking landscapes. Its location atop a towering ridge, embraced by lush green peaks and swirling clouds, suggests that its builders chose this perch with profound, deliberate intent. Was it a fortress, a royal estate, a spiritual center for cosmic observation, or something else entirely? The answer remains frustratingly veiled in the echoes of history, a whispered secret carried on the Andean winds. Machu Picchu's architecture speaks of both impossible precision and unparalleled artistry. Smooth, meticulously cut stones fit together without mortar, reflecting a mastery of masonry that seems almost otherworldly. Here, nature and man converse in silent, harmonious agreement. Stone terraces, designed not only to tame the steep slopes, but also to prevent erosion and create arable land, now support vibrant vegetation, haunting reminders of terrace fields that once fed a thriving, vibrant population. The city's intricate layout, comprising temples, plazas, and residential quarters, reveals an advanced, almost prophetic understanding of astronomy, complex water management, and sophisticated urban planning. Every single structure appears imbued with profound symbolism, hinting at the sacred rituals, astronomical observations, and spiritual gatherings that may have taken place within its hallowed walls. Even in its abandonment, the city exudes a calm, almost ethereal dignity. Weathered walls and overgrown pathways silently speak of centuries gone by, of lives lived and ceremonies performed. Yet Machu Picchu endures, a timeless monument to a people whose ingenuity transcended the limitations of their time, a culture that flourished in harmony with the cosmos, high above the ordinary world. Local lore mingles with scholarly debate. Some believe Machu Picchu was a private royal retreat for powerful Inca emperors, a luxurious mountain escape. Others propose it was a ceremonial center, a place where the natural world and the spiritual realm profoundly intersected. The site's remote, almost inaccessible setting further suggests that it was intentionally hidden, perhaps a refuge from the turmoil of a collapsing empire, or a sanctuary for those seeking deep communion with the divine. The mystery of Machu Picchu is not only in its enigmatic origins, but also in its profound silence. Abandoned suddenly, its stories lie locked in stone, inviting each new generation to decipher its secrets. Who built this marvel, and why, precisely? Did they leave it to nature's quiet embrace, seemingly overnight? The answers, perhaps, lie still in the layers of history, patiently waiting to be uncovered. Asterisk. At the heart of Machu Picchu's profound mystery lies the astonishing story of its creators, the Inca masters of stone, sun, and cosmic understanding. These people were not merely builders. They were visionaries who saw the world through a complex lens of cosmic balance and divine order. Their sophisticated techniques, passed down through generations, transformed rugged Andean terrain into a breathtaking sanctuary of architecture and art. The Inca believed that the sun was the source of all life, a powerful deity named Inti, whose energy and light were absolutely essential to the cycle of nature and human existence. It is widely said that every single stone in Machu Picchu was laid with profound reverence to Inti, the revered sun god. The city's meticulous layout mirrors celestial patterns, and its many temples and plazas precisely align with the solstices and equinoxes, suggesting that astronomy played an incredibly crucial role in its sacred design. Here, the precise movement of the sun and stars was not simply observed. It was celebrated with every sunrise and sunset, marking a daily ritual of renewal and cosmic connection. Craftsmanship was at the absolute core of Inca engineering. The stonework of Machu Picchu is legendary, defying modern understanding. Blocks were carved with such astonishing precision that they fit together seamlessly, without the use of mortar, forming joints so tight that not even a knife blade can pass between them. This technique, known as ashlar masonry, allowed the structures to withstand the powerful seismic tremors common in the Andes. The stones seemed to breathe together during earthquakes, forming walls that have withstood centuries of weather and time, while colonial Spanish buildings crumbled. This unity of material and spirit reflected the Inca view of a world where every element was interconnected, where human endeavor was a collaboration with nature. Artisans and laborers, organized under the meticulous direction of Inca architects and engineers, transformed the unforgiving landscape. They carved immense terraces into the steep mountainsides, not only to stabilize the land and prevent erosion, but also to create vast agricultural plots that would sustainably feed the community. These terraces, now overgrown with vibrant vegetation, were once meticulously maintained, each level carefully planned to capture the precious nutrients of the soil and the life-giving warmth of the sun. The builders of Machu Picchu imbued their creations with deep symbolism. In every carved doorway, every intricate sundial, there was an echo of their profound belief in a harmonious universe, a world where human ingenuity worked in concert with the natural order. They crafted a city that was both functional and sacred, a place where the everyday and the divine coexisted in seamless unity. Their legacy is a silent, awe-inspiring testament to a culture that revered both the tangible and the spiritual, a people who built a city not just to live in, but to honor the sun, the earth, and the eternal. Intricate dance between nature and human ambition. Every stone and pathway in Machu Picchu seems to whisper secrets of the cosmos, a silent testament to the Incas' profound understanding of sacred geometry. The city is not a random assemblage of structures. It is a carefully orchestrated symphony of shapes, lines, and angles that reflected deep, intrinsic cosmic order. To the Inca, geometry was not merely a mathematical tool. It was a language of the divine, a means of expressing the harmony between the heavens and the earth, a sacred blueprint of existence. Walking through Machu Picchu, one cannot help but notice how the layout of the city mirrors the natural world. The terraces carved into the steep mountainside follow precise, calculated patterns that manage water flow and soil fertility, while also creating a visual rhythm that echoes the majestic contours of the Andean landscape. These terraces are far more than agricultural innovations. They are an embodiment of perfect balance, reflecting the Incas' deep-seated belief that nature and human endeavor are inextricably intertwined. Asterisk. Central to this geometric design is the Intihuatana stone, often referred to, somewhat poetically, as the hitching post of the sun. This intricately carved rock stands as a pivotal point around which the precise movements of the sun were observed and celebrated. During the pivotal winter solstice, the sun casts a unique, striking shadow on the stone, an event that was likely marked by solemn, powerful rituals. The Intihuatana, with its precise angles and smooth surfaces, is a physical manifestation of the Incas' astonishing astronomical expertise, serving as both a sophisticated calendar and a profound symbol of cosmic order. The city's plazas, temples, and living quarters are meticulously aligned with cardinal points and key celestial events, underscoring the Incas' unwavering commitment to a universe ruled by predictable cycles and sacred balance. At Machu Picchu, east-west alignments hint at the rising and setting of the sun, while north-south orientations may correspond to other stellar phenomena, like the movements of certain constellations. Such breathtaking precision in planning demonstrates an advanced knowledge of astronomy, which was deeply interwoven with their spiritual practices and daily lives. In the hands of the Inca, geometry was a sacred art. It was used not simply to build functional structures, but to create a space where the human spirit could commune directly with the universe. The deliberate layout of Machu Picchu invites visitors to ponder their own place in the grand tapestry of existence, a timeless reminder that the cosmos, with all its intricate design, is both a profound mystery and a reflective mirror, reflecting the beauty of human aspiration. Through this intricate, divine geometry, the lost city becomes more than an archaeological wonder. It transforms into a portal, bridging the tangible world with the awe-inspiring realm of the divine, a silent testament to a people who saw God in every stone. Despite its breathtaking beauty and ingenious construction, Machu Picchu was mysteriously abandoned, leaving behind profound questions that have puzzled historians and archaeologists for centuries. The profound silence of the city, perfectly preserved in the Andean mists, speaks volumes about a sudden, unexplained departure that transformed a vibrant, bustling hub into an eternal enigma. Several compelling theories attempt to explain why the Inca, masters of their craft, would so abruptly leave behind a place that showcased their most refined achievements. One prevalent idea suggests that the abandonment was a strategic, calculated decision. As the ruthless Spanish conquistadors swept through the Andes, spreading disease and destruction, the Inca may have intentionally evacuated Machu Picchu to keep it out of enemy hands, to prevent its sacred treasures and knowledge from being plundered or defiled. Hidden high in the mountains, the city was perfectly suited for defense. Yet, its isolation could also serve as a sanctuary, a place to retreat and preserve their culture when the tides of war turned devastatingly against them. Another theory posits that natural factors played a significant, perhaps decisive, role. The rugged Andean environment, with its unpredictable weather and challenging terrain, may have gradually made life at Machu Picchu unsustainable. Frequent, powerful earthquakes and devastating landslides could have damaged key structures or, more critically, disrupted the delicate balance of water and agriculture that the terraced fields so utterly depended upon. Over time, these relentless environmental pressures might have slowly but inexorably forced the inhabitants to seek safer, more accessible areas for survival, simply moving away from a home that could no longer sustain them. Yet another perspective looks to internal dynamics within the vast Inca Empire. Some historians speculate that significant political shifts, internal power struggles, or the rise of new capital cities led to the city's abandonment. What was once a paramount royal retreat or a vital spiritual center might have simply lost its administrative and cultural significance, becoming irrelevant as the powerful currents of history moved in a new, unforeseen direction, leaving it behind like a forgotten jewel. Regardless of the precise cause, the abandonment of Machu Picchu was conspicuously not marked by destruction or chaotic decay. Instead, it was a quiet, almost reverent withdrawal. The city was left as if its inhabitants had simply vanished overnight, leaving behind perfectly aligned stone structures and meticulously terraced fields that slowly but gently reclaimed their purpose in nature. This deliberate, almost sacred, preservation has allowed Machu Picchu to endure, remarkably unaltered through the centuries, offering modern visitors an unparalleled, pristine glimpse into the Inca's sophisticated and deeply spiritual world. Today, the enduring mysteries of its abandonment only add to the profound allure of Machu Picchu. The silence of its empty plazas and the whispers of its forgotten corridors invite us, compellingly, to ponder the fate of a brilliant people whose wisdom and ingenuity were matched only by the enigmatic, quiet end of their great city, a city that still holds its secrets close. In the profound silence of Machu Picchu, the lingering echoes of ancient rituals and spiritual reverence still resonate, inviting us, almost compellingly, into the very soul of the Inca world. The city was far more than a strategic stronghold or a luxurious royal retreat. It was, unequivocally, a sacred space, meticulously designed and intentionally placed to honor the divine forces that governed all life in the Andes. Throughout Machu Picchu, undeniable evidence of ceremonial practices is woven into the very fabric of the architecture. Temples, grand plazas, and even certain naturally occurring rock formations appear intentionally placed to serve as conduits between the mortal and the divine, points of connection to a higher power. The Temple of the Sun, with its perfectly curved stone windows and precisely cut niches, was an undeniable focal point for solemn rituals dedicated to Inti, the revered sun god. Here, worshippers likely gathered at dawn to witness the first, life-giving light of the sun pierce the darkness, a daily renewal that profoundly symbolized rebirth, hope, and cosmic order. Adjacent to these grand monumental temples were smaller, more intimate shrines and ceremonial platforms. Their modest size belied their immense spiritual significance. These hidden spaces served as intimate settings for personal prayers, sacred offerings, and communal gatherings, allowing for more direct spiritual engagement. The careful alignment of these structures with precise astronomical events suggests that the Inca meticulously orchestrated their rituals to coincide with the powerful cycles of the heavens, imbuing their ceremonies with the natural, rhythmic pulse of the cosmos. The sounds of ritual once echoed through these very stone corridors, deep, resonant chants, the rustle of elaborate ceremonial garments, and the rhythmic, trance-inducing beating of drums, each element, a vital, interconnected part of the sacred performance. Offerings of precious food, intricately woven textiles, and even rare metals were likely presented to appease the gods, to ensure the abundant fertility of the land, and to guarantee prosperity for the people. These elaborate ceremonies were not merely acts of devotion. They were a profound reaffirmation of the community's identity, a powerful declaration that their lives were inextricably interwoven with the cosmic order, a bond that defined their existence. The very layout of Machu Picchu hints at this deep, undeniable connection with the spiritual realm. Pathways and staircases meticulously guide visitors from everyday life into zones imbued with sacred purpose. Each step taken is a conscious journey through layers of history and belief, a symbolic progression from the mundane to the divine, from the earthly to the celestial. Even today, as modern visitors walk these same ancient paths, a palpable sense of reverence pervades the crisp mountain air. The rituals of the past, though long silent, continue to speak powerfully through the stones and terrace fields, a timeless testament to a culture that sought, with astonishing success, to bridge the profound gap between earth and sky, between the human and the eternal, making the sacred a part of their very landscape. Asterisk. Beneath the well-trodden paths and majestic stone terraces of Machu Picchu lies a world that largely remains unseen, a hidden life that thrived long before modern eyes stumbled upon its ancient secrets. Beyond the grand temples and ceremonial plazas, the everyday spaces of this city tell a quieter, yet equally compelling story of daily life in an ancient metropolis suspended high in the clouds. The residential quarters of Machu Picchu offer a vivid glimpse into the lives of its inhabitants. Narrow, winding streets connect clusters of stone houses, each built with the same meticulous care and precision as the public buildings, albeit on a smaller scale. These dwellings, though modest compared to the towering temples, were ingeniously designed to accommodate families whose lives were intrinsically intertwined with the city's spiritual and agricultural rhythms. Inside, these spaces once buzzed with the mundane yet vital daily activities: the preparation of food over crackling fires, the intricate mending and weaving of textiles, the shared laughter of community, and the quiet murmurs of family life. The conspicuous absence of modern amenities is replaced by a profound ingenuity, an architecture that seamlessly integrated natural light, efficient ventilation, and the surrounding breathtaking landscape into every aspect of everyday living. Water, the very lifeblood of Machu Picchu, was managed with astonishing brilliance. Ingenious channels, intricate aqueducts, and cascading fountains were not only feats of advanced engineering, but also a powerful testament to the paramount importance of water in sustaining all life in this high-altitude environment. These sophisticated systems meticulously distributed water from nearby mountain streams to the terraced fields, to every home, and to all public areas, ensuring that both the sacred and the mundane were nourished with equal care. The delicate balance achieved between sophisticated urban planning and sustainable natural resource management speaks volumes about a deep, intuitive understanding of the environment that the inhabitants possessed, a wisdom we still strive for today. Archaeologists have painstakingly uncovered remnants of workshops where skilled craftsmen worked diligently, day after day, fashioning essential tools, intricate ceramics, and beautiful textiles. These anonymous artisans contributed not only to the daily rhythm of the city, but also helped maintain its rich cultural identity and economic vitality. The artifacts they left behind provide invaluable clues to the methods and materials used in their work, hinting at a sophisticated economy that supported not only survival, but also vibrant artistic expression and community well-being. In the quiet, often overlooked corners of Machu Picchu, vestiges of communal life, such as shared hearths and expansive storage areas, revealed that the city was once a bustling center of interaction and collaboration. It was a place where individuals came together to share knowledge, to trade goods, to celebrate the changing seasons, and to navigate the challenges of life high in the mountains. Though the grand, imposing structures of Machu Picchu capture the imagination, it is the hidden, everyday spaces that truly reflect the vibrant heartbeat of this lost city, reminding us that even the most monumental achievements are built upon the daily lives of ordinary people. The hidden life of Machu Picchu is a profound reminder that every stone has a story, and every path echoes with the silent voices of those who once lived, loved, toiled, and built a remarkable world in the clouds, a world that continues to inspire. Even as the majestic stones of Machu Picchu stand in silent testimony to the brilliance of the Inca, they also whisper of a sudden, unexplained departure. The city, once filled with the vibrant voices of daily life and the sacred rhythms of ritual, now rests in profound, almost haunting solitude, a place where nature and time have gently, inexorably reclaimed what was once a bustling center of human endeavor. The abandonment of Machu Picchu remains one of its greatest, most perplexing mysteries. Historians and archaeologists have long debated, sometimes fiercely, the precise reasons behind its abrupt desertion. Some suggest that the city was intentionally abandoned, a deliberate act to protect sacred knowledge and invaluable treasures from the rapacious Spanish conquistadors who sought to dismantle the Inca way of life and plunder their wealth. Under this theory, the Inca strategically withdrew, knowing that the Spanish would likely never find this remote mountain stronghold. Others, however, believe that a series of devastating natural calamities, recurrent powerful earthquakes, massive landslides, or a prolonged, crippling drought might have made life utterly unsustainable in such a high-altitude, challenging environment, forcing a mass exodus for sheer survival. Walking through the haunting ruins, one cannot help but feel the lingering echoes of a community that seemingly vanished almost overnight. The finely crafted stone walls, the perfectly aligned terraces, and the intricate staircases stand remarkably undisturbed, as if frozen in the very moment of departure. There is no physical evidence of a violent struggle, no signs of chaotic destruction, no widespread debris indicating a hasty, desperate escape. Instead, Machu Picchu appears to have been quietly, almost reverently, left to the gentle embrace of the mountains and the encroaching jungle. Its abandonment was conspicuously not marked by wreckage or signs of a panicked flight, but by a deliberate withdrawal, a conscious choice to leave behind a masterpiece of architecture and culture. Intact, for reasons still unknown, this mysterious exodus only deepens the profound allure of the lost city. The empty plazas and silent corridors evoke questions about the lives that once animated this sacred space. Who were the people who gathered in these squares? What dreams did they nurture as they looked out over the endless Andean peaks? And why, despite all its splendor and strategic importance, was the city eventually left to the whims of time, its purpose fulfilled or its inhabitants simply gone? The echoes of abandonment resonate in every overgrown pathway and every weathered stone. They serve as a poignant, powerful reminder that even the most magnificent, enduring creations can, in the end, fall silent, leaving behind only whispers of what once was, inviting us to ponder the transient nature of all things, even greatness. Centuries passed, and the silent majesty of Machu Picchu remained hidden, a secret locked away beneath layers of mist and time in the rugged, inaccessible peaks of the Andes. It was not until the early 20th century that this lost legacy was dramatically rediscovered, sending shockwaves of wonder and excitement through the world of archaeology, history, and popular imagination. The rediscovery of Machu Picchu was as dramatic as it was serendipitous, a tale almost too perfect to be true. In 1911, the American explorer Hiram Bingham, often driven by a mix of academic curiosity, ambition, and local indigenous whispers and legends passed down through countless generations, stumbled upon the ancient city. His arrival at the site, guided by a local farmer, unveiled a masterpiece of Inca engineering and artistry, one that had been miraculously preserved by its remote location and the protective, almost nurturing, embrace of the mountains and dense jungle. Bingham's expedition, though controversial in its methods and claims, captured the imagination of the global community like wildfire. Photographs and vivid accounts of the breathtaking vistas, the impossibly precision-cut stonework, and the enigmatic structures quickly spread far beyond academic circles, reaching newspapers and magazines worldwide. Suddenly, the world was introduced to a previously unknown, or at least forgotten, civilization that had once flourished in profound harmony with nature, and the cosmosi culture that had achieved the seemingly impossible in both art and architecture. The rediscovery of Machu Picchu sparked a new, fervent era of research and cultural renaissance. Scholars from around the globe converged on the site, seeking to painstakingly piece together the lost history of a people who had mastered both the natural and spiritual worlds with such apparent ease. New, revolutionary techniques in archaeology, ranging from early aerial surveys to advanced dating methods, began to slowly unravel the complex tapestry of the city's past, revealing its secrets layer by layer. Every single stone, every terraced field, every carved niche was meticulously examined, each offering invaluable clues about the Incas' innovative agricultural systems, their sophisticated urban planning, and their deep spiritual connection to the environment. Beyond the academic realm, Machu Picchu quickly became a powerful symbol of cultural pride for Peru and the broader indigenous heritage of the Americas. Efforts to preserve and meticulously study the site were ramped up dramatically, ensuring that its legacy would endure for future generations, protected from further erosion and neglect. Local communities embraced the influx of interest, carefully blending modern tourism with ancient traditions that celebrated the enduring Inca way of life. Rediscovering Machu Picchu was far more than just an archaeological triumph. It was a profound reclamation of history, a reminder to the world that even in the most remote, forgotten corners of our planet, extraordinary stories lie hidden, patiently waiting for the curious and the brave to bring them into the light, forever changing our understanding of human achievement. Today, Machu Picchu is not merely an archaeological marvel preserved in stone. It is a living, breathing legacy that continues to inspire, educate, and captivate people from every corner of the globe. The ancient city stands as an enduring testament to the ingenuity, resilience, and profound spiritual depth of the Inca civilization, a legacy that reverberates powerfully in modern culture, art, and even the way we approach sustainable living and environmental harmony. For the people of Peru, Machu Picchu is a source of immense, almost overwhelming national pride. It represents not just the astonishing achievements of the past, but also the vibrant cultural heritage that continues to shape their contemporary identity and national consciousness. Local communities honor the ancient traditions by integrating Inca customs, folklore, and spiritual beliefs into everyday life. Festivals, traditional rituals, and intricate crafts celebrate the unbroken connection between the present and the ancient world, ensuring that the spirit of the Inca remains vibrantly alive in the hearts and minds of new generations. The global fascination with Machu Picchu has also transformed it into a shining beacon for cultural tourism and crucial international dialogue. Millions of visitors from every corner of the world come to experience its breathtaking vistas, its intricate stonework that defies explanation, and the palpable silence that speaks of centuries gone by. This influx of global interest has not only boosted local economies significantly, but has also fostered vital cross-cultural exchange, allowing modern societies to reflect on sustainable practices, the importance of living in harmony with nature, and the wisdom of ancient civilizations. Scholars and scientists continue to study Machu Picchu with relentless dedication, using cutting-edge technology and innovative research methods to unlock further secrets of Inca society. Drones, high-resolution satellite imagery, and advanced 3D mapping have revealed new, astounding insights into the city's construction, its intricate water management systems, and its precise astronomical alignments. These ongoing discoveries contribute to a deeper, more nuanced understanding of how the Inca interacted with their environment, offering invaluable lessons on resilience and sustainability that are increasingly relevant and urgent in today's rapidly changing world. Furthermore, Machu Picchu has profoundly inspired artists, writers, and filmmakers who draw upon its mystique and timeless beauty to create works that resonate deeply with themes of mystery, nature, and the passage of time. This rich creative legacy ensures that the spirit of Machu Picchu endures far beyond its physical remains, continuing to evoke wonder, reflection, and a profound sense of connection to a vanished world. In this way, Machu Picchu lives on, a timeless bridge between the ancient and the modern, reminding us that the greatest legacies are those that inspire continuous discovery, reflection, and a profound, enduring reverence for the past. The world knew his music, thunderous, passionate, revolutionary. But the shocking truth of Ludwig van Beethoven's greatest battle was fought in terrifying silence. A personal hell that, against all odds, birthed his most transcendent masterpieces. His journey from prodigy to legendary composer was one of unimaginable loss, defiant resilience, and a creative triumph that redefined human potential. Ludwig van Beethoven was born into a world saturated with sound, a world filled with the intricate melodies of church choirs and the earthy strains of local folk tunes. From his earliest days in Bonn, his environment pulsed with music. His father Johann, a court musician and an alcoholic, recognized a nascent spark in young Ludwig and mercilessly pushed him to master the piano and violin, hoping to mold him into a new Mozart. Even as a child, Beethoven displayed an uncanny, almost supernatural ability to memorize and reproduce complex musical phrases with breathtaking accuracy. His fierce determination and raw, untamed talent quickly set him apart in the bustling musical scene of Bonn, where every note carried the intoxicating promise of greatness. Yet, even amid the applause and accolades, subtle, insidious shadows began to gather. In his late teens, Ludwig experienced the first unsettling hints of trouble, fleeting moments when the vibrant world of sound would inexplicably blur and fade. At first, it was a slight buzzing in his ears, an occasional, unsettling distortion during rehearsals. As he practiced relentlessly, almost obsessively, these disturbances grew more pronounced, leaving him momentarily disoriented, a terrifying glimpse into a future he could barely fathom. But the young Beethoven, driven by an inner fire, pressed on, channeling these strange, unsettling experiences into his burgeoning compositions in the vibrant salons and crowded concert halls of his youth. Beethoven's music was a testament to the sheer beauty and expressive power of sound. His early works echoed with the boundless passion of youth and the astonishing precision of a prodigy, hinting at the titanic force he would become. Yet, even as he basked in initial success and growing renown, he began to sense a profound, terrifying change within himself. The music that once flowed effortlessly, intuitively, now came with an unsettling undercurrent of challenge, a struggle against an invisible enemy. The very vibrations of a piano's keys, the rich resonance of a cello's deep tones, these were becoming not only his instruments of expression, but his fragile lifelines, his last connection to a world he felt slipping away. His genius was already being recognized across Europe, his reputation growing rapidly, yet his internal world was shifting dramatically, irrevocably. The seeds of his later, silent struggles were sown in these early years, a cruel irony for a man destined to be known for his sound. Even as critics marveled at his dynamic, groundbreaking compositions, Beethoven was quietly learning to listen not just with his ears, but with his entire being. Every sound, every fleeting silence, every vibration was becoming a note in the complex, tragic symphony of his life. This was the terrifying, yet ultimately transformative, beginning of a journey that would redefine what it meant to truly hear, and what it meant to create against impossible odds. As Beethoven's star rose rapidly in the glittering courts of Vienna, an insidious, devastating change began to take hold. At first, the signs were subtle. A muffled note here, a missed beat there. Conversations grew increasingly difficult, frustratingly unclear, and the rich, complex textures of symphonic harmonies slowly slipped away, like echoes dissipating in a vast, empty hall. The brilliant composer, once enveloped by the full, glorious spectrum of sound, found himself increasingly isolated, trapped in a world that was gradually, cruelly dimming into silence. By his early 30s, Beethoven's hearing loss had become undeniable, a brutal, public secret he could no longer hide. Letters filled with raw despair began to circulate among his closest friends and worried colleagues, revealing the extent of his torment. In private moments, he would almost desperately trace the contours of his piano, pressing his ear or hand against the wood, almost as if trying to physically feel the music that his ears no longer could transmit. Yet, in the very midst of this personal catastrophe, a truly remarkable, almost paradoxical transformation was already underway. Unable to rely on the conventional pathways of sound, Beethoven, in an act of defiant genius, turned inward. He began to explore music through its sheer physicality, its raw, primal vibrations. Every deep thump of the bass drum, every subtle tremor from a vibrating string, every resonant throb from a brass instrument, these were now a language of their own, a secret communication from the very heart of sound. He discovered that by placing his hand directly on the instrument, he could feel the pulse, the intensity, the very life of the notes. In these tactile moments, he found not just solace, but profound inspiration, a desperate way to reconnect with the arts he loved. More than life itself, this new, unconventional way of experiencing music became his secret ally, his hidden superpower. While the world outside struggled to understand his deteriorating condition, often mistaking his withdrawal for arrogance, Beethoven was learning to hear with his body, his bone structure, and, most powerfully, his astonishing memory. He recorded melodies in his mind with shocking clarity, each vibration etched deeply into the very fabric of his soul. In his secluded, often messy study, surrounded by scattered sheets of paper covered with frantic notations, he composed symphonies that would later shake the very foundations of classical music, pushing it into an entirely new, revolutionary era. But this journey was not without its profound torment. The intense isolation, the gnawing frustration of losing something as fundamental, as defining as hearing, weighed crushingly on him. Every silence felt like an agonizing loss, and every vibration, though a lifeline, was also a constant, painful reminder of what was relentlessly fading away. Yet, it was in this crucible of despair, in the suffocating quiet, that Beethoven's most innovative, audacious ideas were forged. His inner world, now filled with a new kind of silent sound, a symphony only he could truly hear, was beginning to shape his immortal legacy defined not by what he lost, but by what he miraculously discovered in the quiet, in the echoing stillness of his own making. Beethoven, the defiant maestro, embraced the challenge. His struggles with deafness became the very canvas upon which he painted his greatest musical visions. Visions that would forever change the way humanity understands the raw power of silence and sound. When the vibrant, complex notes of concertos and operas became an elusive, frustrating memory, Beethoven, against all odds, discovered an alternative language, vibrations. In his increasingly silent world, every physical pulse from the instruments around him transformed into a tangible sensation, a new form of communication. As his hearing continued its relentless, heart-breaking deterioration, he learned to rely on the rhythmic thrum of strings and the resonant beat of percussion to guide his genius. He would famously press his hand against the piano, feeling the reverberations travel through his skin, connecting him to the very pulse of the music. The sensation of vibration soon evolved into a profound, almost mystical method of hearing that was uniquely his own, a secret sense developed out of desperate necessity. Beethoven would sit for hours in his modest, often cluttered studio, where the heavy, resonant tones of a well-tuned piano still filled the room, even if only he could truly feel them. Placing his hand firmly on the instrument's soundboard, he absorbed every nuance, the deep rumble of a bass note, the gentle tremor of a high-pitched trill. Each vibration carried profound meaning, a silent symphony that his brilliant mind would meticulously translate into complex, layered compositions. For Beethoven, these physical sensations were far more than just mere substitutes for sound. They were a direct doorway into an inner realm where music existed in its purest, most abstract form, stripped of external distraction. It was here, in this tactile, internal universe, that he began to compose his most daring, revolutionary works. With each vibration, he felt the intricate interplay of rhythm and emotion, capturing fleeting moments of inspiration that defied the cruel constraints of silence. His notebooks, filled with frantic sketches of melodies and harmonic structures, became the blueprints for symphonies that would later captivate the world, shattering musical norms. In time, this new, profound way of experiencing music completely reshaped his creative process. No longer confined by the limitations of traditional auditory hearing, Beethoven's imagination soared to unprecedented heights. He embraced a broader, richer spectrum of sound, a blend of vivid memory, raw emotion, and tactile physical sensation. The vibrations became the very heartbeat of his compositions, driving him to experiment boldly with dynamics, texture, and form, pushing the boundaries of what music could be. Every throb of the instrument, every physical sensation, was a constant reminder that music was not solely an auditory experience, but a universal language accessible through touch, through intuition, through the very essence of human feeling. Even as his external hearing faded into oblivion, Beethoven's almost superhuman ability to translate the language of vibrations into timeless masterpieces grew ever stronger, ever more profound. His inner concert hall, a secret world built on the echoes of tactile sensations and profound memory, became the birthplace of symphonies that would defy time, sound, and human comprehension itself. It was a realm where silence was not empty, but filled with the infinite resonance of memory and feeling. A world that would soon give rise to some of the greatest musical achievements in all of history. In the depths of his profound personal silence, Beethoven, with astonishing courage, forged a new, unprecedented path for creativity. Unable to rely on the external sounds that once inspired him, he defiantly turned inward, accessing his vast, almost limitless reservoir of musical memory. Every note he had ever heard in his youth, every melody intricately etched into his mind, every orchestral nuance, every harmony, these became his precious, irreplaceable resources. In his private study, often a chaotic space surrounded by scattered sheets of paper and ink-stained manuscripts, he composed in a language of silence, a language where every stroke of the pen, every precisely notated measure, was a testament to his indomitable spirit, a silent declaration of war against his affliction. Beethoven's creative process became intensely solitary, almost monastic. He would sit for hours, sometimes for entire days, utterly immersed in thought, as he painstakingly crafted each musical phrase, each intricate counterpoint. Without the distraction of ambient noise, his inner world took undisputed center stage, becoming a boundless canvas for his genius. Memories of long-ago concerts, the specific timbre of orchestral instruments, the emotional cadences of his early, vibrant compositions all guided his unwavering hand. He transcribed these vivid recollections with a precision that bordered on the mystical, transforming recollected sound into written masterpieces that defied the laws of nature. The act of composing transformed into a meditative, almost spiritual experience for him. Beethoven learned to hear the music not with his ears, but within the confines of his mind, a process both painstaking and profoundly transcendent. He would tirelessly experiment with countless variations of themes, modulating and layering them, constructing intricate architectures of sound until a complete, perfect symphony emerged on the page. In this silent sanctuary, creativity was unbound, utterly freed from the constraints of physical hearing. It was an intimate, almost agonizing dialogue between his tormented soul and the eternal, universal language of music. Challenges, of course, abounded. Gnawing frustration, profound isolation, and the relentless, creeping encroachment of silence tested his resolve daily, pushing him to the very edge. Yet, in those moments of deepest darkness, he found an unexpected, searing clarity. The very absence of sound forced him to focus on the purest, most fundamental structural elements of music: harmony, rhythm, and counterpoint, stripped bare of all embellishment. His later works, marked by their intricate interweaving of melody and raw emotion, are a breathtaking testament to this refined, almost miraculous artistry, a powerful reminder that true genius can flourish even in the most suffocating silence. Beethoven's notebooks, filled with thousands of pages of furious scribbles and revisions, reveal the unyielding fervor of a mind that simply refused to be silenced by deafness. Each page is a chronicle of sheer perseverance, capturing the astonishing evolution of musical ideas that would later echo across concert halls and resonate through generations. His compositions from these silent years are imbued with a raw, almost desperate intensity, as if every note is a defiant, triumphant proclamation against the void, a testament to his enduring spirit. In the profound quiet, Beethoven rediscovered music not merely as a series of sounds, but as an immersive, transformative experience crafted from deep memory, powerful emotion, and the palpable vibration of life itself. Through this inner music, this silent symphony, he created works that continue to resonate with audiences around the world, reminding us that even in profound silence, there is an eternal song, a boundless creative spirit that cannot be extinguished. As Beethoven's silence deepened, an entirely new realm of composition emerged. A realm where sound was profoundly felt, not heard, and where the symphony of the inner world became his greatest, most unprecedented creation. In this final, most visionary phase of his life, the composer embarked on what many would later call his unheard symphony, a monumental body of work that truly transcended the physical limitations of hearing and embraced the full, terrifying spectrum of human emotion, memory, and tactile experience. In his secluded, often messy study, isolated from the external world, Beethoven began to experiment with musical ideas that boldly defied all conventional norms. No longer relying solely on auditory input, he explored the intricate interplay of rhythm, harmony, and complex structure through pure intellect, raw emotion, and physical sensation. Every vibration he felt in the instruments, every echo of his own pounding heartbeat, every ghost of a past melody became integral, indispensable components of his compositions. The resulting music was not merely a replication of what once was heard, but a daring, audacious reimagining of sound itself, a new language spoken from the heart. This profoundly creative period was marked by an intense, almost obsessive dedication. Beethoven would spend countless agonizing hours perfecting each movement, meticulously adjusting the dynamics and counterpoints until the music resonated perfectly within his inner ear, a symphony only he could truly hear. His focus was absolute, an almost spiritual meditation on form and feeling that yielded works of profound depth and unparalleled complexity. The symphonies he composed during these years were characterized by dramatic, often shocking contrasts, innovative, never-before-heard structures, and a poignant, almost haunting quality that spoke to the isolation, the suffering, and the fierce determination of his condition. Critics and contemporaries, baffled and awestruck, would later marvel at how a man who could no longer hear the world around him, who had become profoundly deaf, could produce music that seemed to capture every nuanced facet of the human experience, every triumph and every tragedy. His later symphonies, the ones conceived entirely in silence, are universally celebrated for their overwhelming emotional intensity and their breathtaking technical mastery. They are works that defy the ordinary, speaking directly to listeners in a language that transcends mere sound, a language that is as much felt in the soul as it is heard by the ear. Within these compositions lies the very essence of Beethoven's genius, an almost miraculous ability to turn personal tragedy, profound suffering, into a universal expression of hope, resilience, and transcendent beauty. His unheard symphony is an enduring reminder that creativity knows no bounds, no physical limitations. Even when deprived of one's primary sense, the human spirit can find new, revolutionary ways to perceive, to create, and to inspire. In the profound silence of his later years, Beethoven transformed loss into eternal art. His music became an everlasting conversation between memory and imagination, a dialogue that continues to captivate, comfort, and challenge us today, proving that even in the deepest quiet, genius can roar. The journey into silence was as much a devastating personal battle as it was a transformative creative process. As Beethoven's hearing relentlessly faded, an isolating silence seeped into every aspect of his life. The vibrant concert halls, the lively social gatherings, the intellectual debates he once cherished were gradually replaced by profound solitude and introspective agony. In the midst of this crushing loneliness, the composer faced not only the devastating loss of a physical, sense, but also the profound, agonizing loss of connection with a world that had once so loudly celebrated him. Each passing day brought new, unbearable challenges. Social interactions became strained, awkward, as his inability to engage fully in conversation led to constant misunderstandings, perceived slights, and a profound, gnawing sense of alienation. Beethoven found his only solace in his music, which became his sole, constant companion. The internal echo of his own heartbeat, the vivid memory of past sounds, and the physical vibrations he could still discern from his instruments offered. A fragile, desperate connection to a world he could no longer truly hear. Yet, it was within this very isolation that Beethoven's inner strength shone brightest, a beacon in the darkness. Determined not to let silence define him, he immersed himself in his work with an intensity that bordered on obsession, a desperate race against the void. His studio became a sanctuary, a sacred refuge where he could still communicate with the universe, with humanity, through the universal language of music. Every stroke of the pen on manuscript paper, every carefully notated measure, was a defiant step toward reclaiming the lost voices of his past, toward building a new, silent world of sound. Friends and patrons witnessed a man utterly transformed by his struggle, while some lamented the heartbreaking loss of the great conductor's listening ear. Others marveled at the fierce, almost terrifying determination that fueled his compositions, recognizing that he was creating something utterly new. His letters, filled with raw emotion, reveal moments of deep, suicidal sorrow mixed with sudden, explosive bursts of creative inspiration, a testament to the profound paradox of his condition. In the stillness of his isolated world, Beethoven discovered an unexpected, searing clarity. The very quiet allowed him to focus solely, intently, on the pure architecture of his music, the intricate interplay of themes, the delicate balance of dissonance and harmony, and the complex, emotional tapestry woven into each composition. This period of intense solitude also forced Beethoven to confront the inner workings of his own brilliant mind with unprecedented depth. He delved deep into vivid memories of earlier sounds and performances, reconstructing them with a precision that was almost surgical, rebuilding his lost auditory world from scratch. These rich recollections became the unshakable foundation for his later, most profound works, an immense archive of auditory treasures, meticulously preserved in the corridors of his memory. Though isolation brought unimaginable pain and despair, it also cultivated an inner resilience, an indomitable spirit that would come to define his enduring legacy. Beethoven's battle with loneliness, his relentless pursuit of artistic perfection despite overwhelming adversity, stands as a powerful, timeless reminder that even in the darkest silence, the human spirit can create a light that echoes through eternity, a symphony that transcends all limits. In the profound absence of external sound, Beethoven constructed an extraordinary inner concert hall, a private, sacred realm where music was not experienced through the ears, but through the rich tapestry of memory, raw emotion, and tactile vibration. This inner space became the boundless wellspring of his creative genius, a place where past experiences seamlessly merged with unbridled imagination to form a unique, unprecedented musical language. Within this mental sanctuary, every composition was a complex, intimate dialogue between what had been heard and what could be conceived. A conversation between loss and creation. Beethoven would close his eyes and vividly recall the symphonies of his youth, the vibrant, almost physical clashes of orchestral sections, the tender, delicate piano melodies, the resonant, soaring chords that once filled concert halls and echoed through his ears. He could almost physically hear the voices of his revered mentors and the thunderous applause of enraptured audiences. Moments forever burned into his consciousness. These potent recollections served as both boundless inspiration and an unshakable foundation, meticulously guiding him as he crafted new works that transcended the cruel limitations of his physical hearing. Asterisk here. In the silent theatre of his mind, Beethoven fearlessly experimented with form and structure, pushing the boundaries of musical convention. He explored bold harmonic shifts, layered complex counterpoints, and dared to implement rhythmic innovations never before imagined. All the while, he relied entirely on the tactile sensations of vibrations from his piano and the vivid, almost hallucinatory imagery of his musical memories. The inner concert hall was not bound by the mundane constraints of physical reality. It was a boundless realm where every human emotion found profound expression in sound, where every nuance of human experience could be rendered into music with breathtaking fidelity. This internal world was a refuge from the crushing isolation, a sacred place where the tumult of everyday life faded away, replaced by the searing clarity of pure, unadulterated creativity. In these moments of deep introspection, Beethoven was utterly free to explore the deepest recesses of his own soul, to wrestle with profound philosophical questions through the language of music. The resulting compositions bore the unmistakable, indelible imprint of his struggle and ultimate triumph, a powerful blend of raw, almost painful emotion, unparalleled technical mastery, and transcendent beauty that defied all logical explanation. The inner concert hall also served as a vital, unbreakable bridge between the past and the present, between memory and invention. Beethoven meticulously documented his ideas in countless notebooks, each page a window into the intimate, often agonizing, process of his musical creation. These precious manuscripts reveal a man who, despite his growing silence, was more connected to music than ever before, bound to it by an unbreakable spiritual cord. Every note was a memory resurrected, every phrase a testament to the incredible resilience of the human spirit. In this sanctuary of soundless symphony, Beethoven redefined what it truly meant to create music. His inner concert hall became a potent symbol of hope, a timeless reminder that even when the external world grows profoundly quiet, the internal echo of passion, genius, and unwavering spirit can produce works that resonate far beyond the limits of time and space, touching eternity itself, in a world that expected silence, or at least resignation. From a man who could no longer hear, Beethoven defied all expectations with a defiant, almost furious outpouring of creativity. His silent years were not marked by resignation, but by a fierce, unyielding determination to push the very boundaries of musical expression further than anyone had ever dared. Every composition became an act of profound rebellion against the cruel limitations imposed by his deafness, a thundering declaration that art transcends all physical constraints, that the human spirit cannot be caged. Beethoven's later works, composed in the deep solitude of silence, were imbued with an intensity, a complexity, and a revolutionary spirit that utterly stunned audiences and critics alike. He reimagined the symphony as a vast, almost infinite canvas upon which he could explore the full, terrifying range of human emotion. Each movement was meticulously crafted, painstakingly balancing intricate counterpoints with bold, dramatic themes, pushing the very definition of harmony and melody. These compositions were not merely music. They were epic narratives of struggle, triumph, profound despair, and the relentless, almost obsessive pursuit of beauty in the face of unimaginable adversity. Defying the impossible odds, Beethoven continued to innovate relentlessly, using every tool at his disposal. He relied on mathematical precision, a deep-seated, almost photographic musical memory, and the tactile feedback from instruments to guide his creative process. His notebooks, filled with sprawling, energetic sketches of musical ideas, reveal a mind that was constantly, furiously at work, an endless conversation between silence and sound, between genius and torment. The deaf composer transformed his isolation into a powerful catalyst for unprecedented innovation, channeling his profound frustrations and inner turmoil into works that would forever change the course of Western music. Critics and contemporaries marveled at the sheer audacity of his vision, struggling to comprehend how he could create such complexity without hearing it externally. Even as he lost the ability to hear the performances of his own compositions, he could listen to them perfectly in his mind, ensuring that every detail, every nuance was absolutely perfect, precisely as he intended. His unwavering determination inspired those around him, encouraging fellow musicians and composers to explore uncharted territories in music, to break free from convention. Through these defiant acts of creation, Beethoven not only expanded the boundaries of what was musically possible, but also redefined the very nature of art itself. His late symphonies, concertos, and chamber works are universally celebrated as ultimate triumphs of the human spirit, a powerful, eternal reminder that true genius lies in the ability to overcome adversity, to transform profound limitations into boundless possibility, into something truly divine. Beethoven's silent years stand as an enduring testament to his indomitable will, a profound reminder that when the world grows quiet, the inner voice of creativity can speak louder than ever, echoing through the ages. Long after Beethoven's final breath, his music continues to resonate across time, a timeless echo of brilliance born in profound silence. His compositions, forged in the depths of isolation and unimaginable hardship, have transcended the physical confines of his world, touching the hearts and minds of listeners across countless generations. In every note, every powerful chord, there is a story of struggle, of defiant resilience, and of an unwavering, almost spiritual belief in the transformative power of art. Beethoven's legacy is not measured solely by the revolutionary symphonies he wrote or the daring innovations he introduced to musical form. It is defined more deeply by the sheer, unyielding spirit with which he confronted the crushing challenges of his life. His silent years remain a poignant, almost haunting chapter in the history of music, a period when a man deprived of his greatest senses discovered miraculous new ways to perceive and create sound. He taught us, fundamentally, that music is not merely an auditory experience, but a profound interplay of memory, emotion, and the deep human capacity to feel beyond the physical, to access something higher. Today, Beethoven's masterpieces continue to be performed in the world's grandest concert halls and the humblest community gatherings. Spanning continents and cultures, they serve as an unbreakable bridge between the past and the present, a timeless dialogue that spans cultures and eras, speaking to universal human experiences. Audiences listen not just to the notes on the page, but to the echoing soul of a man who defied silence and miraculously turned it into an everlasting song, a hymn to resilience. His journey, his very life, continues to inspire countless artists, musicians, and dreamers around the globe. In classrooms and rehearsal spaces, the raw, powerful story of Beethoven's silent years is recounted as a profound reminder that limitations can be transformed into inexhaustible sources of creativity, that adversity can forge greatness. His life challenges us to look beyond our immediate circumstances, to transcend our limitations, and to find unexpected beauty in the most challenging moments. Beethoven's eternal echo reminds us that the true power of music lies in its ability to communicate the deepest, most ineffable truths of the human experience, a language that speaks directly to the heart without needing the ears. Even when the ears can no longer hear, his legacy endures in every performance, every inspired composition, and every single life touched by the transcendent, silent sound of his genius.